In this Substance Painter tutorial, I just want to have a look at actually using levels, and in the course of this, just show you a technique for kind of adding wear to a material as well. So I have this on this chest right now, and I've got a couple of different layers. I've got some lighter spots, some darker spots, and I also have the roughness as well. So let me just click these off. And there we have our base object. And you can see, hopefully, that looks a lot more interesting with those build-up of layers on there. Okay, so let's have a look at doing something like this. So I'm just going to start off with, and in fact, let me just get rid of these for a second. Delete these. So I'm going to start off with a full layer. And what I'll do is I'm going to have this as my roughness. Okay. I'll also bring in a base material, so I'm just going to go into the wood material and just use wood walnut for now. And in fact, I do have that on there. Yeah, I've still got that on there. So the only thing with this is I've made sure that I've got this set to my triplanar projection. And see if I did set it to UVs, I would have to rotate a lot of these or set IDs up to create better rotation within this, or I could use the polygon fill. But in this case, I've just used a triplanar projection, and that has fixed a lot of the problems with the UVs. Okay, so I'm going to go into this now. So I've called this roughness. I'm just going to use the roughness information on this particular channel. And to get a bit of interest in this straight away, so we've just got a uniform roughness on this. Okay. To give us a bit of interest in this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a procedural. I'm going to go down and use one of the grunge. So maybe something like this. So I'm going to drag and drop that over. That's going to paint that in. So one way to be able to see this roughness is if I just press C. Can go through, and there we have our roughness channel, and it's just a little easier to see what's going off with this now. So with roughness, black is completely flat, completely shiny, white is completely rough. So I can just play around with this. Okay, so different grunges may have different parameters as well. So if you used a different grunge, you may not be getting the same parameters, but generally we get the balance and contrast. Okay, I am going to do this a different way, however. So on this roughness, I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a levels. So anybody familiar with Photoshop or any other application that has color correction will be familiar with levels. Just allows us to change the parameters of the color information underneath. So on this, I just need to make sure that I change the affected channel and change this over to roughness. And then we're working with our roughness information. Because I have no base color or any other stuff within this layer, this particular layer, I've only got the roughness. And note that the histogram won't change until I get into the roughness. And there we have that histogram there. So I can start bringing this up now. But what I want to do is I don't want this as shiny. So I'm just going to bring this black output level up. I may add a little bit of contrast to this just in terms of this, and then it's going to get the gamma and just do something like that. Okay, maybe take some of the white out. So it's just playing around till you get something that you like. If I just press M, that goes back to the whole material, and there we can see I've got the roughness on there. See that? Okay, so I'm just shift right clicking and moving my mouse to move the light around, and there you can see we've got that breakdown in the roughness there. Okay. Just gonna bring this out just so we have a bit more change in that. So I can keep adding stuff onto this if I wanted to. If I just right click and add a generator now. I'm just going to go into the generator and add an MG mask. let me just go in and I'm just going to go back to the channels. So just pressing C. Just want to go back to the roughness channel. Now we have no information on this right now. I do want to have this as a multiply just on this particular one, and just make sure I do go back to my roughness channel. Multiply on that. So if I blend that out, we can see, because we're stacking these up now on the layers. So I've got my levels and I've got my mask editor. And what I want to do with this is just adding some white. So again, if you remember that white is not shiny, just to add some of this into the edges of this model. I want to do this quite subtly. Okay. I'm going to do an overlay on this, maybe a screen. Let's have a look. Okay, just to add that on there. So we're just layering these up with the blend modes. So the screen is kind of getting rid of the darker area and just keeping the lighter information, and we're able to add this on top. Or I could use a linear dodge if we want that a bit stronger. Okay. I can always fade that in and out as well if I want something. So we're building up this bit by bit. So I've got that on there. Again, if I just press M, I've got a layer switched on above that suddenly. I think I've got a base color on there. Let me just click off that. I just want, there we go. So that was a problem with that. It was darker. On the mask editor, I was using the color on all the other channels as well. Again, I just want this to be roughness for this particular thing. Just allows me to control that one element of the material and have that split up. What we can also do as well on this is we can, if we want to paint information in, I can add another element onto this, so we can add paint. So with the paint, again, what I want to do with this, I'll have this on painting in kind of the shinier information on this. So maybe as if we had some water damage and the water had leaked from the top of this. So using my brush, and I'm painting in with black right now. I can just kind of go in and actually start painting some of this information in. Okay, so if we want any areas that are particularly shiny, I can just do that. I can paint that information in. Okay. So again, with this, if I wanted to, I'm still on my roughness on there. I could sort of fade out that effect, make that a bit more subtle. I can play around with my blend modes as well. So I'm painting in black on this layer. So if I set this to multiply, it's just going to keep that information, and then we can blend that out exactly the same. So we can build up this level of detail just using this one parameter or one procedural map, and then using these on top. So I'll just switch this off. So I have our roughness on there. Okay, I have my levels on there just to control the roughness, my mask editor, and then I've got my paint, and all those work together to build in that kind of detail. So that's roughness. Let me have a look at another example. So I'm going to do another fill layer. So this one, I'm going to add some coloration over the top, or some discoloration rather. I'll just use my color on this. And again, I'm going to go into my grunge maps. I'm just going to get something that looks quite interesting. This. And again, projection, I'm going to set to triplanar projection. Okay, and we can always just go in and just play around with a seed a little bit. Maybe something like that. So with this, I'm just going to go in. I'm just making sure that I'm now on my base color on the layers. There. I'm going to set this to multiply. Okay, so that's now over the top. And if we wanted to really sort of fire damage wood, yeah, it's quite nice. But what I will do with this is, again, I'm going to add another levels onto this. So let's call this dark spots. Let's go in, right click and add a levels. Okay, this time my levels is my base color, which is what I want. And then I can just start affecting this, so and just make this a bit more subtle. If we take the black out, so we're just making that a bit more subtle. I prefer to do this than actually start taking the value down. So we still have our multiplier set to 100 there. So I could make it more subtle by changing that. But I just find that doing this with the levels gives me that bit more control on this. Put a bit more contrast in between these. So something like that. Okay. So there's a bit of color variation to this. Generally I do like a darker one and then I do a lighter one at minimum. So let's just call this light spots. Do the same thing. I'm just going to keep the color information. Just going to get a grunge on this. That looks nice. Maybe this one here. Let's go back in. Let's set this UV to triplanar projection. And we can always play around with the scale and everything else as well. So maybe something like that. So this particular one, I'm going to set the blend mode to either linear dodge, or we could also set it to something like a soft light. Let's do it linear dodge for now. And again, what I'm going to do with this is add a levels to this. So with my levels, again on my base color, let's just take the input white down now. I'm just going to start making that a bit more subtle again. Okay. And if it is still too strong, then maybe you could just take it down. But the levels control is a really, really useful thing to be able to get a bit more control over each of those individual things, individual areas. Okay. So there we've got a couple of different things. Let's just take these off. So we've got our very plain wood. We have our levels on that, and then we have just some other details on that to just age this and make it a bit more interesting. Okay. You could always add mask to this or other things, but that was just a quick look at actually building up some detail using these different elements, particular levels on there. And that's the end of this tutorial.